First question to address is, what is mental toughness? And we've got a definition up on the screen there. It's a personality trait which determines in large part how people deal with challenge, stress and pressure, irrespective of prevailing circumstances. Now, there are 2 or 3 bits of that definition that are in italics. One is that it's a personality trait. That's very significant. A few years ago, we didn't know that it was a personality trait. We do now know that it's a personality trait, which means that it sits in every single one of us, and it kicks in every time we have to do something. Now, it's helpful to know that it's a personality trait, because in any people development activity, that's what we're doing. Generally, we're shaping personality. Personality has 3 elements, generally. One is how we act, and that's when we look at behavior. So CBT programs are examples of programs that try to change our behavior or help us to change our behavior. The second element is how we feel. The reason why we tend to focus on how we act or behave and how we feel is that we can quite easily see those. We can often describe those very easily. However, there's a third element of personality that receives comparatively little attention, and that's how we think. So that's really what's running inside our heads, which determines our behavior and determines how we feel. So this particular aspect of personality focuses on how we think. It looks at our underlying drivers. So when we try to help people to enjoy better well-being, manage their emotions and feelings, when we try to look at how people might develop new behaviors, it is critically important to understand, well, what is it that's making me think this way? So this is where mental toughness focuses. The other thing that's useful and interesting to know about mental toughness as a personality trait is that it's a plastic personality trait. By that we mean that it's a personality trait which is comparatively malleable. We can change it, which for people who are involved in the people development world is critically useful. The next bit says it determines in large part how people deal with challenge, stresses and pressure. It's not the answer to everyone's prayers, and there are other aspects of personality and other qualities such as ability which can impact on our performance and our well-being. But what we do know is that this particular factor has a very significant part to play in well-being and in performance. Studies in the world of education have shown that up to 25% of the variation of an individual's performance can be explained by the mental toughness. When you consider all the factors that are at play when people are trying to achieve things and enjoy well-being, it is hugely significant. But of course, it doesn't determine everything. And then finally, the little piece there that says, irrespective of prevailing circumstances, that's simply addressing a common question. People will often say, but I'm different at work than I am at home. No, you're not. You're the same. What you're thinking, what your thoughts are inside your head will be the same whether you're at home, at play, at work. Your behaviors might be different, and that's shaped by the environment you're in, but your thoughts aren't. Now, occasionally people become distracted by this term toughness. When we're talking about toughness, we're not talking about a quality in the macho or domineering or aggressive sense of the word. We're talking about toughness in the resilience sense of the word. So we would often use lay definitions such as it's about being the best that you can be, about making the most of every ounce of ability you've got. It's about being comfortable in your own skin. And that means understanding that life will have difficult times, life will have good times, but that's just normal. And so our ability to deal with the threats and the setbacks are as important as our ability to grasp opportunities. So what you can see is that there's a very strong positive theme in mental toughness. It isn't about being aggressive or macho or domineering. In fact, some people will often ask, is it a male-dominated theme? And we'll see a little bit later that all the studies show that the patterns of mental toughness for males and females are virtually identical, which is quite an interesting piece of evidence and quite an interesting observation. Is it important? Well, it is. It's a particularly well-evidenced piece of work. There are something like 40 or 50 published peer-reviewed pieces of research out there by universities all over the world. A lot of them are in the world of education or in the world of young people's development. And what they show consistently is that there's a correlation between mental toughness and being more effective, about positive behaviors, that is, seeing opportunities where other people might only see threats. And that translates into things like people becoming more engaged, more positive, more can-do. And then finally, there's a big correlation with well-being. The University of Basel in Switzerland, in particular, has published about 7 or 8 research papers now that show a number of correlations between mental toughness and well-being, which include the mentally tough deal better with anxiety. The important thing there is they can be as anxious as anybody else. They just deal better with it. And there's a big correlation between mental toughness and the ability to sleep. So the mentally tough are better able, at the end of a particularly stressful day, to be able to say, well, that was the day. I'm putting that into a little box in my head, and I'm going to relax now. The mentally sensitive, which is the opposite of mental toughness, are obviously unable to do that, or can do that to a much lesser extent than a mentally tough individual. So when we talk about mental toughness and its impact, what we find consistently that the impact lies in 3 areas: performance, well-being, and positive behavior. And that translates into a whole host of important and valuable outcomes: transition, managing change, a big application in leadership development, career management, employability, attainment, retention. In the world of further education in particular, there are some interesting studies that show a correlation between the mental toughness of students and their ability to stick with a program. Dropout is correlated with mental sensitivity.